Hello, my name is Matt Muncie, and this is my Business Analytics Capstone presentation through the Quinnipiac University Masters in Science and Business Analytics. The project that I've been working on this semester is Understanding Enrollment Yield, and this has been a case study for Mary Baldwin University, which is located in Stanton, Virginia. I currently serve as the Director of Admissions, so this information is certainly pertinent to my everyday job, quite frankly. And with this, I'd like to point out two quick things. Mary Baldwin, small liberal arts university, just under 600 residential undergraduate students currently, and has just undergone a lot of change over the past year and a half. We recently became a co-ed institution and have really broadened our approach. We used to be an all-female school for 175 years before that. So a lot of change going on at the university, which is why I have chosen to only analyze 1 year of data. This most recent year where we've been co-ed. It's been the first full year for the co-ed push to bring in both male and female students. And then wanted to point out exactly what I mean in our presentation in this project in terms of enrollment yield. Yield is, the final goal for an admissions office is to have a student enroll or quote-unquote deposit at that institution. And I calculate yield in this instance to the number of students who have applied and compare that number to the number of deposits overall. Some schools will use acceptances to deposits. I've chosen for this to use applicants to deposits in our instance. One thing as we get started here is wanted to introduce each one of you to the enrollment funnel. For us, we have our numbers here that are specific to Mary Baldwin University and what we've done this current year. But our prospective student pool is the names of students that are purchased. Usually they're selected by through the College Board or the ACT, so the SAT or ACT test takers, and data for each one of these, sort of points in the funnel certainly varies. So for prospective students, you don't have a lot of data on those students. You really have first name, last name, birthday, gender traditionally, address, what school they attend, and a few other data points there, possible major. And then as you sort of work your way through the funnel here, you start to pick up more data points. And applicant to the institution, obviously you have all the data that they have done through the application itself. So you know about their SAT scores in particular, you know their GPA, you know what activities they've participated in high school and maybe which ones they're looking at in college. And then for some institutions you also have an essay as well that you pick up at the applicant stage, which can certainly be used for some quantitative analysis there. And once again, this just gives you our numbers through this current year through the enrollment funnel, ending up at 327 deposited students out of 7,047 total applicants. I wanted to briefly share an application map just to give everyone here a sense of understanding a little bit more about where our students, where they live, of the students who apply. So you can certainly see Virginia is certainly the highest state of applications, Maryland, North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, really everywhere within a driving distance. You usually have a fair amount of applications to the institution. Also, you see Florida and Texas being pretty big draws. A couple of reasons I'll point out for that in just a moment, and then also California as well, probably just for the sheer number of potential students that are out there in Florida. The deposited student map here for us takes a look at the yield percentage, so the number of applications compared to the number of deposits, and then excluding the state of Virginia, because most of the applicants and also most of the deposited students are from Virginia. Wanted to give us a colorful representation, skewing us to the number of deposits, and then including in the yield percentage there for us as well. You can see, California had 3 students coming at a 2% yield. Texas had a 1.17% yield with 3 students. Florida did a lot better on the yield percentage, and you see those yield percentages are traditionally higher close by to campus as well. Looking at Virginia, just the state of Virginia by zip code, there were 180 students who had deposited from Virginia, and this analysis shows that 10 of those students are from the same zip code as Mary Baldwin University. So Stanton, Virginia has those 10 students that are coming from the area, and likely staying at home to just take part in their collegiate experience. You do see just a wide spread. There's not a lot of zip codes that have more than 2 or 3 students coming to Mary Baldwin from those zip codes. So that's a nice part to know, and definitely something that I can pass along to our admissions counselors, so our recruiting staff, in understanding, you hit a lot of different areas. You may pick up 1 or 2, and in a small institution, those numbers add up quite frequently there. Richmond area here, over to the right hand side and down a little bit, you see a lot of 2s and 3s that are kind of bunched in there, and then the Tidewater, Virginia, down close to the water, you see a good distribution there as well. But this map here is something that I show our admissions counseling staff this past fall, and we'll do that again this fall, so they understand a bit of why they're out there traveling to reach these students. Going through, taking a wider look at our data that was used for this analysis, I pulled data from 4 different databases, or 4 different data files here. The first of which is our application data. So that data is coming directly from the vendor who hosts our application. Biographical information is received there, intent to study, of course, the geographic stuff of where they're from and where they're located, high school GPA, test scores that are self-reported, that's thrown in there as well. That data then, most of that data goes into our CRM, our Customer Relationship Manager database, which is a Salesforce platform. And then that also adds in, though a lot of it's not as automatic as I would like at this point, it adds in a fair amount of, who comes to campus, who interacts with members of our staff, who was seen on the road and traveling, and those sorts of things to get a little bit of a better understanding of who's really interested. Those 2 data files have a common identifier, the user ID, which was really helpful in merging those together. Financial aid, and that database, on the other hand, uses Social Security numbers. So I was taking the Social Security number that was provided on the application and merging that in with the financial aid data set. And then I took a data file, and backing up just a second, the financial aid data set included things like estimated family contribution, the family's overall adjusted gross income, and different data points like that to use for analysis. And then for the IRS data file, I pulled in the AGI, or the adjusted gross income, that was the average by zip code, to analyze that as well, to see if there were any common kind of points that could be picked up there within the detailed analysis. So for us here, within enrollment and enrollment management and admissions in general, one of the big things that can be ultimately helpful is understanding who will enroll from those, in our case, in this study, for those who had applied to the institution. Obviously, if an office knows which students are most likely to apply, or most likely to deposit, they will then, be able to focus their energies on those students in particular. And for this analysis, I took 4 different predictive models and built those within the SAS Enterprise Miner, and the strongest of those models was the decision tree model, and more information on this will certainly be provided in the final capstone project submission. But of that, the true positive number was 192. So it selected, of our 327 deposits, 192 of them it selected correctly. It thought that 45 additional deposits should have been included in there, but were not. And then the biggest piece that is tough for our office to navigate it are the false negatives. So those students that were in the population as being negative, but then ultimately ended up having deposited. Those are tougher to see, and certainly troubling for the offices to understand who who will likely deposit. Other analysis that was performed through this case study was a little bit of quantitative analysis through the essay that we do receive for some of our students who are interested in the VWIL program, so the Virginia Women's Institute for Leadership. It's the only Corps of Cadets that's all female still in the country at the collegiate level, and they require an essay component. And one interesting thing to note there, the yield rates for students who were clustered into groups through a text bounding process that seem to have experience within junior ROTC programs and other military leadership that they'd already performed throughout high school, those students were about twice as likely to attend Mary Baldwin, which is certainly a helpful point moving forward within this modeling. Looking through, one of the consistent themes were the variables of importance throughout the various models that were run throughout this process. One of which is the event score, looking at the deposit percentages for the event score. The event score is really just a numerical piece that we code in our database that says, if a student visits campus at any point in time, we're going to give them this number. And if a student doesn't visit campus, then we're not going to give them that number. So just understanding who deposits and who doesn't based on their visits to campus. And you can see over on the right-hand side, 43.61% of the students who visited campus deposited. So that's definitely a big feature that we'll definitely take on to our marketing team to say we need more people to visit campus along with the admissions counselors. The deposit IQ score here, we send out through our vendor information requesting, the answer to a question. And the question is very simple. Do you plan to enroll? Or, how likely are you to enroll at Mary Baldwin? Some of those students say they've already enrolled. Some say yes. Others say probably. But over on the right-hand side, you can see the percentage who deposited indicated by 1 there for students who answered that question. So for the yes population, only about a 41% yield rate on those, which is kind of odd, if you really think about it. So that's something that our counselors will definitely take a look at in future years. And the relationship score piece down at the bottom here is just understanding a bit more about interactions with the counseling staff. So students with a prospect score of 0 did not have any personal interaction with the counseling staff or with members of the admissions office. And the numerical value to the left there changes based on how many interactions that student had. So you can certainly see an uptick once a student gets to 3, 4, and 5, and 6 and beyond. You have a pretty good yield rate there. So really it tells us that the more a student interacts with an admissions office, the more likely they are to enroll. And then for us through this process that I've taken a look at, and this certainly project has kind of opened my eyes to some of the kind of data things that we can do to improve as an institution. Right now we're working out of really data silos. The application is its own separate file. Our financial aid database is independent and they don't link well together. The CRM that we have, the Salesforce piece, we need to do a lot of work in that database to automate things that are going on. We send emails out of that database but have not been actively tracking who opens those. So I anticipate in future years that we'll say, a student who opens 4 or more emails, from us as an institution might have a yield rate that's significantly higher to that of someone who didn't open any emails. Different things like that I look forward to adding in there as well. And then in addition to that, taking into account other offices on campus and at Mary Baldwin and the information that they collect. I particularly think of retention, so course selection, things of that nature, to see what students are actually staying and are happy at Mary Baldwin will be something that we take a look at down the line. We are working actively to have a big data warehouse on campus, to have all these different data silos be stored there so that we can have easy access to them and that we can merge the data from those different databases. And one other piece to point out here, that this is really the start of an entire process that we'll be doing on campus to take a look at in our instance here, the number of applications who ended up depositing, but we'll also take a greater look into what students are likely to visit campus to target them. So really setting the campus visit variable, setting that as a target variable to see who is most likely to come to campus. And then looking back and thinking through with our enrollment funnel, even though we have limited data, but figuring out which students, which names that we purchase, maybe why we purchase those names, and understanding a little bit more about which students from that pool are likely to apply and move forward in the process. So this project overall has been, quite informative on what we need to do differently, and certainly has been very helpful in seeing which variables were important in seeing which students chose to attend Mary Baldwin for this upcoming fall. So we've got a lot of work ahead of us, but certainly are headed on the right track, and this course in particular has been a huge part of that. Thank you very much, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you all might have about this. Thank you.